The air in the suburbs usually smells of charcoal and laundry sheets, but that morning, it smelled of ozone and impending disaster. I stood in the shadow of my front door, my hand frozen on the handle, as my world narrowed down to a single terrifying point of focus. On my driveway, a piece of concrete I had paid for and maintained for 20 years, stood a man named Brent Cooper. He was wearing a tactical vest that was 2 sizes too small, cinched tight over a sweat-stained polo shirt. On his chest was a patch that read Sycamore Heights Enforcement, a title that sounded official but carried the legal weight of a grocery store coupon. But the thing that made my heart stop wasn't the vest. It was the black semi-automatic pistol Brent was holding in his trembling right hand, the muzzle aimed directly at the bridge of my son's nose. My son, Jax, didn't move. He didn't flinch. He didn't even blink. Having spent the last 6 years as a Navy SEAL with 2 deployments under his belt, Jax was home on a rare 2-week leave. He stood there in a plain gray t-shirt and shorts, his feet planted shoulder-width apart, his eyes locked onto Brent's with a calm that was almost eerie. "On your knees," Brent screamed, his voice cracking like a teenager's. "I told you, the HOA has the authority of the county in this district. You're interfering with a site inspection. Kneel down or I'll use force." Jax didn't kneel. He just stared. "Your hands are shaking, Brent," Jax said, his voice as steady as a surgeon's. "That makes you dangerous to yourself and everyone on this street. Lower the weapon." The madness had started only 72 hours earlier. Our neighborhood had always been a soft HOA, the kind that sent a polite letter if your grass got a little long or if you left your trash cans out during a holiday. But everything changed when Cynthia Marsh was elected president in a landslide vote of 12 people because no one else showed up to the meeting. Cynthia was a woman who lived for the gotcha moment. Within 24 hours of taking the gavel, she had rewritten the enforcement protocols. She claimed the neighborhood was descending into aesthetic anarchy and hired a director of field operations. That director was Brent Cooper. Brent was a man who had failed out of the police academy twice and spent his weekends playing tactical paintball. To Cynthia, he was a loyal soldier. To the rest of us, he was a nuisance, until he became a threat. Brent had targeted our house the moment Jax's truck pulled into the driveway. He claimed the military-grade vehicle, a standard Ford F-150, was a violation of the commercial weight limit for residential streets. When Jax ignored him, Brent started leaving orange stickers on our windows. When Jax moved the stickers, Brent started following him. The morning of the incident, I had been inside brewing coffee. Jax had gone out to the driveway to grab a gym bag from his truck. According to our Ring camera, which was silently capturing every high-definition second of the encounter, Brent had pulled his white SUV onto our lawn, jumping the curb. He jumped out, clipboard in hand, screaming about aggravated non-compliance. "I told you to move this vehicle to the overflow lot," Brent yelled. Jax had just looked at him, slung his bag over his shoulder, and started walking toward the front door. "Speak to my father, Brent. I'm on leave. I don't have time for your cosplay." That was the spark. Brent's ego, inflated by the plastic badge Cynthia had given him, couldn't handle being dismissed by a man who actually lived the life Brent only pretended to understand. "You don't walk away from an officer," Brent shrieked. He lunged forward, grabbing Jax's shoulder. Jax didn't strike him. He simply executed a shoulder roll that sent Brent stumbling back into the flower beds. Enraged and embarrassed, Brent didn't reach for a radio or a phone. He reached for the holster on his hip. He drew a real, loaded 9mm pistol, a weapon he had no legal permit to carry as a compliance officer, and leveled it at my son. "You think you're a tough guy?" Brent spat, his face turning a mottled purple. "I represent the board. I represent the peace of this community. Get on your knees." This was the moment I stepped onto the porch. My breath hitched. I wanted to scream, to run, to tackle Brent, but I knew that any sudden movement would spook the shaking man into pulling the trigger. "Brent," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "Put it down. Let's talk about this." Brent didn't look at me. He was fixated on Jax. He resisted. He assaulted an officer of the association. "I'm making a citizen's arrest." Jax took a slow, deliberate step forward. He wasn't aggressive, he was measuring the distance. "There is no such thing as an HOA officer, Brent. You're a private citizen committing aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. Look up at that corner." Jax pointed to the Ring camera tucked under the eaves of the porch. The small blue light was glowing steadily. "That camera is streaming to a cloud server," Jax said. "My father's phone, my phone, and 3 neighbors are watching this live. Every threat you make is being recorded for the district attorney. You can walk away now, or you can go to prison. There is no third option." For a second, I saw Brent's confidence shatter. His eyes darted to the camera, then back to Jack's. But the panic had set in. He realized he had crossed a line he couldn't uncross. Instead of de-escalating, he doubled down on the madness. "I'll take him as a witness." Brent screamed, suddenly lunging toward me on the porch, attempting to grab me as a human shield against the camera's gaze. He never reached me. Jax didn't hesitate. In the world of a SEAL, there is no maybe. There is only the threat and the elimination of the threat. Jax hadn't been standing there defenseless, he had been waiting for the exact moment Brent's focus shifted. Jax drew his own sidearm, a concealed carry piece he was legally permitted to have, with a speed that the human eye could barely track. A single, controlled shot echoed through the cul-de-sac. Brent didn't fall because he was dead, he fell because his leg gave out. Jax had placed a round perfectly into Brent's thigh, missing the femoral artery but shattering the bone and instantly dropping him to the concrete. Brent's pistol skittered across the driveway. Jax was on him in a second, kicking the weapon away and pinning Brent's arms behind his back with a knee in his kidney. "Call the sheriff," Jax said to me, his voice as calm as if he were asking for a glass of water. "And tell them we need an ambulance for a gunshot wound." The sheriff's deputies arrived in force. They didn't see a shooting, they saw a crime scene where a homeowner had defended his family against an armed intruder. While the paramedics worked on Brent's leg, the sheriff reviewed the ring footage. He watched Brent jump the curb. He watched Brent draw the weapon. He watched Brent threaten a Navy SEAL on his own property. "Justified," the sheriff muttered, looking at Jax with a grim sort of respect. "But we're going to need to have a very long talk with your HOA president." The investigation moved like wildfire. Cynthia Marsh was found in the HOA office, frantically trying to delete emails and shred documents. It didn't work. Investigators found that she had used $15,000 of neighborhood dues to hire Brent and buy him equipment, including the tactical vest and the very gun he had used. She had told him to apply whatever pressure is necessary to remove problematic residents. The legal fallout was a scorched earth campaign. He survived, though he would walk with a permanent limp, a constant reminder of the day he tried to out-tough a SEAL. He was convicted of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, attempted kidnapping, impersonating a peace officer, felony firearm possession. Sentence: 11 years in state prison. The Queen of Sycamore Heights didn't fare much better. She was convicted of conspiracy, misuse of corporate funds, and solicitation of a crime. Sentence: 4 years in prison and a lifetime ban from any fiduciary or leadership role. The Sycamore Heights HOA was dissolved by a vote of the terrified and fed-up residents. The bylaws were scrapped, the enforcement unit was disbanded, and the neighborhood returned to the only thing it was ever supposed to be, a place to live. That evening, the sun set in a brilliant wash of orange and red over the ridge. Jax and I sat on the porch steps, the ring camera still watching silently above us. Jax was cleaning his truck, moving with that same disciplined, quiet energy. He looked up and saw me staring at the spot on the driveway where the ambulance had been. "You okay, Dad?" he asked. "I was just thinking," I said. "All of that, for a truck on a driveway." Jax nodded, leaning against the fender. "Some people spend their whole lives looking for a way to feel powerful, Dad. They find a little title, a little badge, and they think the world owes them a knee. They forget that real authority isn't something you take. It's something you earn by being the kind of person who doesn't need to shout to be heard." He went back to work, the rhythmic scrub of the sponge against the metal the only sound in the twilight. The fake cop was in a cell. The president was in a cage. And on Sycamore Lane, the only rules we lived by were the ones that had always mattered. Look out for your neighbor, mind your own business, and never, ever mistake a quiet man for a weak one.